Welcome children to Geography with Juliana, and we are studying Standard 10 Geography, Chapter 3 Physiography and Drainage, and this is our fourth video. So far we have completed in detail the 5 physiographic divisions of India. Okay, and today we are starting with the physiographic divisions of Brazil. Now a cursory look at the map of Brazil will make us realize that Brazil is mostly covered by highlands, okay, here in the north as well as in the central, eastern and the southern part. Brazil has plains mainly in the north, especially the Amazon plains, a little plain you find here in the west and in the south. Brazil does not have very high mountains. This we had studied when we did the activity as well, where we checked the height, okay, of India and Brazil, and we know that India has peaks varying more than 6,000 to 8,000 meters, but Brazil does not have high peaks or high mountains. The average height are about 1,000 meters. Okay, so that is what we need to keep in mind. Besides, if you look at the coastal region, India had a huge coastal line of 7,500 meters. Brazil also has a huge coastline of 7,400 meters. But Brazil hardly has any coastal plains as such. Okay, so if you look at the coastal plains, they are very limited in expanse, very limited and narrow. Okay, so let's study these 5 physiographic and islands. Of course, we'll come to that last physiographic division. There are plenty of islands on both the coast. Now, talking about the 5 physiographic divisions of Brazil, Brazil has 5 major physiographic divisions. The highlands, okay, which occupies major part of Brazil, the great escarpments, the coastal regions, the plains and the island groups. We find them here in this map. Okay, the highlands, the plains here, the coastal regions, okay, the great escarpments. I'll have to erase this so that you can get a better view now. The great escarpments, which forms a separate physiographic division, and the islands on both the coast. This is the northern coast and this is called as the eastern coast. Okay, so let's study one by one in detail. We take the first physiographic division, which is called as the highlands. Okay, so we take this picture here. In order to understand, no, I think I'll take the other one. Okay. Here, we'll take this part first. Brazil has highlands in the north called as the Guana Highlands and Brazilian Highlands. So we need to study both. There could be a short note on the highlands of Brazil. So when you say highlands, you have to mention both the Guana Highlands as well as the Brazilian Highlands. So looking at the Guana Highlands in the north first, okay, we find them stretching. Let me just so we find them in the northern part of Brazil. If you look at the picture closely, it literally looks like a little dog here with his ears, and he's sitting happily here with his little tail. Isn't it funny, right? So this northern part of Brazil is occupied by this Guana Highlands. These Guana Highlands stretch in 3 different provinces. Okay, they stretch in the provinces of Roraima, Para and Amapá. Of course, only the northern part of these 3 provinces have the Guana Highlands. The major part of these highlands are in the countries of Venezuela, Guyana, Suriname and French Guiana. So basically they're stretching from Venezuela to French Guiana, but they also stretch in the northern parts of these 3 provinces. We have studied that Brazil does not have major peaks, okay, or high-rise mountain, but the highest peak of Brazil is Pico De Neblena, which can come as fill in the blanks as an objective, and for map work they are situated here in this region. Okay, they are situated in the Guana Highlands between Venezuela and Brazil. Okay, so this could be for map work. Now if you look closely, you find something like the lion's mouth over here. Okay, and the neck of the lion. So exactly at the neck, beginning of the neck of the lion, we have Pico De Neblena. Okay, I'll give you another picture here to understand Pico De Neblena. The location for Pico De Neblena is important, okay, for map work, and this has come in 2019 question paper as well. So you can see the arrow pointing towards the peak, okay, the highest peak, and the height is 3014 meters. No other place in Brazil, no other region in Brazil rises to 1000 or more. Okay, the maximum height is 1000 meters in the remaining part of Brazil, but Pico De Neblena rises to 3014 meters. Here I've given you a picture of this peak, Pico De Neblena. Okay, so that's about the first highlands, the Guana Highlands. Then we come to the Brazilian highlands. Okay, we have to go back to this region. Talking about the Brazilian highlands, they stretch in the central, southern and eastern part of Brazil. Their major height is 500 to I think almost 1000 meters. Yeah, just 500 to 1000 meters. Okay, not more than 1000 meters high. Looking at the slope of these, they're not very steep on the northern side. How do we understand the slope of any region? By looking at the rivers. So if you look at the rivers, most of the rivers are flowing northwards. They are either meeting the river Amazon or they are directly entering into the Atlantic Ocean. So most of these highlands are sloping towards north. Okay, so because most of the rivers here are northward flowing. So most of these regions, the Brazilian highlands, are sloping northwards, though their slopes are not very steep. But from place to place, on their way, they do make waterfalls and rapids. Now, rapids are you can say waterfalls where the water falls with a great velocity. So from place to place you may find waterfalls and rapids as well. Talking about the western slopes are not really much. They normally have the northern slopes and the southern slopes. However, two major rivers are flowing westwards. These are the Paraguay and the Parana rivers. Okay, and at the southern slopes you come across the Uruguay river as well. Right, so on the western side there is a question later on which we'll be studying. Brazil does not have major west flowing rivers. The main reason is the Brazilian highland slope northwards and southwards. So there are hardly any slopes towards the west, and therefore there are hardly any rivers that flow towards the west. That could be a give reason as well. Okay, so most of the rivers we have seen meet Amazon. Talking about the southern slopes, however, towards the south, the Brazilian highland become much steeper and higher as well, assuming a height of almost 790 meters. Okay, and these now stand out separately as the next physiographic division, which we call as the Great Escarpments. Though they are part southern slopes of the Brazilian highlands, but they are taken as a distinct physiographic division because they influence the climate of Brazil. How do they influence the climate of Brazil? We'll be talking in the 4th chapter as well. Okay, but as we progress with this, I will explain a little bit about how these great escarpments are influencing the climate of Brazil. Now, talking about the location of these great escarpments, okay, you find it here in the southern and eastern part of Brazil. This entire region here, these are the great escarpments. They stretch from the provinces of, here you can see Sao Paulo. Okay, so they are stretching from Sao Paulo to Porto Alegre, right up till here. So the major height of these highlands are situated between Sao Paulo and Porto Alegre, and these are they do influence the climate, and therefore they are an important physiographic division of Brazil. This is an aerial view of the Great Escarpments. Okay, and I had another picture here where, okay, anyway, to understand how do they influence the, I think it's just a second here. Okay, how these great escarpments influence the climate of Brazil. The great escarpments are stretching here in the south and southeastern part of Brazil. The southeast trade winds are the winds which bring rainfall to Brazil. As they move towards Brazil, the great escarpments act as an obstruction and they give orographic rain on the southern slopes. However, as these winds cross the northern slopes and move towards north, they become dry, okay, and they form a rain shadow area. So much so, in the northeastern part, it forms a dry, arid region, which is also called as Drought Quadrilateral. You may get a short note on Drought Quadrilateral, okay, where you need to mention that because of the location of the great escarpments, they act as a barrier for southeast trade winds which bring rainfall to Brazil. They give orographic rainfall on the southern slopes, but as they cross and go northwards and eastwards, they become dry. This region comes under rain shadow area and is called as the Drought Quadrilateral. So with this, we end the first two physiographic divisions of Brazil. In the next video, we'll be studying the remaining three physiographic divisions of Brazil. So I normally upload videos from Monday to Saturday, so keep looking out for them. Keep studying regularly. Till we meet again, bye-bye, take care, and God bless you.